We're live. Are we wide right now?
No, we are.
Yeah. No, we're wide. No, that's me.
Yeah. Wide you.
It would help if that's why, because the lights.
It's going to be about 30 minutes of this.
Welcome, everybody. This is our full Goat Moon Discourse. You know what that means? That means we've been producing this for you guys for one full zodiac cycle. Talk about circulation. Circulation doesn't just move the blood. No, it means start, go all the way around, and come back. We are good circulation.
And to go move to a place to begin because it's the collective body.
Look at that. We planned that.
That's right. Yeah.
So, guys, really quick before we get into any of this, you also know that this is where we celebrate our connoisseur club, right? We're sampling our teas. So right now I have my tea getting prepared by boiling water. I'm angry boiling water because we are going to be brewing this butter patch shung cooler stuff. It's the first tea that we're serving today. And all these teas are provided by our partners over at Western China. Shout out to Seanan. Shout out to Nate and all the other guys over there. Okay. So to serve this tea, I'm going to get angry boiling water. I'm going to put it into my vessel to kind of warm it up. And that's going to clear it and clean it and then make it nice and welcoming for this tea that I'm going to use. So they call it butter slab.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of the 3 teas in our.
Wait, hold on 1 second. I'm reading things. Barely hear Seanan still.
I haven't said anything.
Hard to hear David as well.
Hard to hear me. Maybe I'll get the citronella out of the way. This is the first time upping our production, guys. So.
I found it.
Yeah.
I'll up the microphone volume maybe and see that works.
Nice, and then up the output.
Yeah.
Where's the red zone?
Yeah.
Highway.
But we weren't peaking at all beforehand, and people were saying that it's hard to hear. Is this better now?
Oh.
Chat? No response.
So while I have the tea going, Seanan,
Yeah, right.
tell us about goats.
Bring it in. What's go. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you, and it's been quite a journey. You know, we started with 1 camera, now we have 4. Took us a year. So the details breakdown. Water rabbit year, everybody remembers that part. It's been an Earth goat. It's the 6th full moon of the year. Earth is the native element of goat. So it's a little bit like when you say yin Earth, you're basically saying goat. Goat. It's a goaty. Goat. It's a goatiest goat that it could be. And so, what are the themes? I guess it's important to back up and remember what we've been going through. You know, this is technically considered late summer in the calendar of the feng shui. That's not the kind of things we're hearing in our society. Our society is like summer's in full swing, but it's actually on the downslope.
Yeah, autumn begins next week.
Right. Autumn, as the chi node, autumn begins. Good.
Yeah, can you project a little bit more?
Project to reach the back of the room. Yeah, the chi node for autumn, the first initial stage of autumn, actually does begin next week. That's still considered technically late summer. We don't get the vanquishing of the heat until after that point, right? So it's not quite, once autumn begins, it's more or less like yin is now obvious. right? More obvious. Now it's more subtle. The idea behind the Chino that we're currently in, which is great heat, is very complicated. Very complicated situation, especially for those who want to prolong activity, who are reaching for sort of a perpetual growth. Late summer is characterized by like this last push of growth, really trying to get as much as we can out of the growing season. Right? The trouble is, it's very risky to do that. It's very natural to do that because the point of yang qi throughout the year, the growth of yang qi has been to push yin into appearance. That's the whole idea. So everything that we see, everything that we interact with, the fruit we taste, all of that, still yin. That's all yin. What's the growth itself and the vibrancy of coming into fruition is a sort of energy being pushed by yang. Right? So it's pushing all the potential that exists toward this sort of completion, toward a place of fruition.
Speaking of fruition.
Fruition, coincidentally, is one of my favorite chocolate companies.
Wow.
Out of New York. Very good.
Oh my God, production, dude.
That's nice.
Shout out to Sohan. Ooh, right? Butter slab.
So the whole point of yang is to kind of push things to fruition, take potential into manifestation.
And if I may, so it almost sounds like an instigation of sorts, but at the same time, there could also be patience, right? Because buds don't bloom by ripping them open. Grass doesn't grow by pulling at it. So yes, there's this idea of okay, move it along, but it can also just be like feel it and give it space to expand.
Yeah, I mean, you have in this sort of relationship, this sort of natural fruition of like the inner content. And this is very important when we're talking about the sixth moon in particular, this sort of the inner virtue of something coming into fruition. So it's a little bit like, pushing too hard, is sort of not expressing this natural quality of the inner virtue of something expressing. Like we're trying to force it. And that's where yang can go astray, particularly right now. And since the 23rd, when this Chino kicked in, it is really overreaching, potential for overreaching, and pushing too hard is really strong. And that leads to all kinds of really serious medical conditions, actually. Ming was very clear about this particular Chino, and he was citing like medical texts in history that talk about inflammation, the experience of inflammation as being instituted in a way that's called stuck heat. And we have stuck heat in the body that causes chronic disease over time. Because you go season after season of really trying to push it too hard, you basically stack this stuck heat, and it leads to chronic conditions and untreatable conditions.
He would often talk about that, like the lump of hot coal wrapped around
the cinders.
Yeah.
The cinders, and and that they just like rattle around, and cause destruction, in the physiology. So coincidentally enough, this is the time where you pick those things up. Right. There is a Chino that's like, beware, in all of the old texts, this is the Chino where you pick those things up through your own habits, through your own conduct. And the misconduct during this time of year is actually potentially very catastrophic. And basically what that means is we're leveraging future potential for momentary gain. If we're pressing to squeeze the life out of yin, we don't have anything to pay it forward. We squash our potential. We harvest too soon, or we let things go too long, trying to get more and more growth, and in so doing, everything rots. So this is a very hit or miss kind of time, that we're in the middle of, and it's still going. And this particular keynote ends on Tuesday. And then we get this autumn begins business, which is, again, still putting the brakes. We're still putting the brakes on Yang. And the encouragement has been for the last month is to have Yang Qi retire. Meaning, like, okay, what is it like to complete something? And that's the dialogue that we're going to have about the sixth moon. What is the nature of completion? How do you finish? What is finishing and completing and finding satisfaction actually feel? Because satisfaction itself is not like what happens when we get everything wrong. It's something actually really quite different. And it's actually a condition, a chi condition, that's actually present and available during this time. It's very important that we actually practice satisfaction. And then before we were talking about practicing completion. You get the end of your day. Don't think about all the things you haven't done. It's foolish. Like, think about the things that you've done. Think about the things that you've completed. And now it's like getting to that feeling, that place of feeling satisfaction of completion. I was studying these things for years now, and been royally confused about this idea of feeling fruition. A citizen of an industrial society that prioritizes continuous and perpetual growth, we are taught that the best things in life never end.
Happily ever after.
That is what we are taught. The best things in life never end. What does that do to someone? Like, how do they actually feel satisfaction if they're taught that the best things in life never end?
Wonder can't get no satisfaction.
Right. Of course, and you sleep.
They like it. Satisfying. Yeah. So really quick, tea. I rinsed the vessel at 212. I rinsed the tea at 200, and I steeped the tea at 1. Yeah, progressively lighter. Because otherwise, if you go too hot, you'll solve these teas. Bitter or stringy.
That's what I did, unfortunately. So there's risks in tension right now because it is a kind of hit or miss situation. Coming over here, I was thinking about all the cautions. There's so many cautions to say. And also, there's a lot of potential celebration. Like, we should be sort of feeling ourselves. A little bit. This has been a good year. Actually noting the things that feel close to right, close to feeling a kind of sense of harvest that's impending, right? That we have this, we have a feeling, some feeling of accomplishment. I'm not talking about all the things you want. Let's not get caught up in that dialogue because that's actually never ending. That is the nature of desire, is to kind of look for the thing around the corner. The practice is actually being present with things as they are, and as they have been unfolding, and seeing the kind of the fruition that's present, and being with that fruition, and actually, getting a sense of it, getting a sense of the things that are sort of coming into rightness, coming into fullness, things that are ready to harvest, and potentially some things that actually, okay, this is close. Do I risk it? There are these sort of calculations and assessments that are coming with the goat moon that are about, and that's where collaboration comes. I'm not doing everything on my own anymore. It's not like a horse moon where I feel like I can shoulder everything across the finish line. I actually need to rely on people who actually see and sense our interdependence way more. Especially water rabbit year. It's actually very, very important to rely on each other, to find the interdependence, to find the mutuality in our situations, because it actually tends to prolong growth. when we do that. We have more people invested, and everybody's sort of, gathering together and pitching in to complete, some or to bring things to some level of fulfillment.
So what do you say? Go alone, go fast, go far, go together.
Right. Yeah, I was on a plane coming back from, I was on retreat, and was coming back. Just had this like really strong emotional thought about like there is only one share. That's all there actually is.
Oh.
Everything you feel like you accomplish as an individual means. Because if you don't have anyone to share it with, it doesn't really land. Even if you were doing everything on your own, which you're not, like most everything. Actually, you need other people to get something done. I mean, 4 cameras took all these people to kind of set this up. If it was just you and I, we'd be like talking on your iPhone, like, right? So it's not some idealized harmony. It's actually a situation where we need people, and those people have flaws. I have flaws. Working it out. It's it is the potential in terms of when we're talking about this idea of harmonious, which is a big part of what Go is about. Is the sense of harmony. Harmony itself is sort of a condition that's based in a dialogue where everything is included. So there isn't some angelic realm where we all arrive at harmony. Like it's actually just what we're doing.
That's an interesting way to say the goat. It's harmony, relates to harmony, because I often interpret that as OCD.
Harmony or Go?
Go, right? But
well, they are always kind
harmony
of
is
double
like,
checking.
it's the extreme OCD. Everything has to be harmonious.
Yeah, no, there is a sense in which like order is a real big part of the chi. Right? But order kind of depends on your context. Like order isn't like some abstract reality. Order is just like I can order these cups by size or by color. Kind of depends on the categories that you're starting with. That's what makes the the need for like a practice. That these things are a practice. They're not like some state we arrive to. That's some of the things that we have trouble with as Westerners working with. I can speak for myself as a Westerner working with these concepts and the practices. They're not like they're not elements where we experience some sort of revelatory condition. They're actually just paying attention to being a human being with other human beings. And this is the time in which that connection is actually vibrant. Yeah.
Well, perfect segue. I'm going to service now this next tea. It's Golden Turtle Oolong. And this one's special. We interviewed Sohan last week, and he told the entire story of how this whole family, just a small family, and they have this golden turtle. So, really fun story of how he sourced it. Anyway, I had some before. We had some in the month prior, and it was really vegetal, really smooth. So this time I'm going to maybe brew it a little bit lighter, not go so hot with the water to allow some more floral. And that guy one nice. It's called an eggshell. You kind of see the light through it. Iridescent.
Little vegetal. Yeah, so to be in contact with our sense of achievement, for the year. I suppose that's a big task for a lot of Westerners to do because we're constantly thinking about what we haven't done, and sort of being tortured by like not enough time. And so this would be the period of time in which we would be feeling that now and through to like third week, maybe even into September, because Monkey's going to come along and whip the rug out from underneath us. So this would be the time to actually really sink into a sense of accomplishment, even if you're not necessarily feeling, well, I got 6 out of 10. It would be nice if I got 8 out of 10. Even if you have these kinds of reservations, it doesn't matter. Spend time with the 6. Spend time with those 6 things that actually and flesh it out, because there's still an editing process associated with harvest itself. But at this time, we're sort of doing what the text would say, editing what is unrighteous. So I'm kind of feeling this, but I just don't think I'm going to be able to get it done. So you put it on the shelf. That's why I'm not just trying to drag something out because I have to do it. Like, by what standard? Like really narrow it down. What do you have time for? And because if we're not doing that, we're sort of burning ourselves out. We're, potentially, this is about cutting back obligations, pacing ourselves for the next month to 6 weeks. And it's like really paring it back, making tough decisions.
Yeah.
And that's these kinds of initiating new levels of conservation of our energy actually allows us to fulfill and find satisfaction in what we could do, and to be realistic about that. So that way we can say, did my best, this is it. But if we're sort of caught in a spiral on some kind of fantasy, then we're sort of trapped in this place where exertion is all and fulfillment never comes. So this sort of exaggerating our capacities and pushing ever harder, we miss out. We miss out on this kind of harmonious way, not only of examining our own lives, but contributing to the lives of others. Because maybe if I had a little excess time, I could come over and help you push something across the finish line. But we don't really have that. We have the things we value are perpetual. So it's very difficult to talk about these things, to the modern Western mindset, is because we don't really have a sense of completion. We don't really have a sense of conclusion. We imagine that an industrial society means we don't have to, but everything that we do is actually connected to the earth and relies on food coming from the ground. So like we are still connected to this fundamental cycle. The chi relationships that we're talking about in these texts they are based in kind of agrarian way of looking at things. But if you think agrarian is, past tense, it's foolish. It's actually operative now. The kinds of foods you have available to you, like we're very spoiled. We think we can get peaches all year long. But what you're missing out on, in that process is how those foods that appear throughout the seasons actually speak to you and calibrate your own chi so that you can be in right relationship or in harmonious relationship with the seasons as they pass. So it's not utilitarian. I mean, in some ways it's utilitarian, but it's not romantic at all. It's actually incredibly practical. To think of our lives, our own human lives as, in a web of interconnection. And we use those things all the time, but it's actually real. All you have to do is pay attention to, the weather or how you feel as you go through the cycles of time. And like, there's plenty of documentation from this tradition where you can just measure up your own experience to and actually feel. So even if I'm working the same job all year long, my relationship to that job is going to be different, over time. And the task is to practice, not to listen to me or anyone else tell you like what's good right now, what's bad right now. It's actually more about like what you feel. And that started in spring, when you felt spring, when you felt like you felt felt inspired, and then you felt energized, and then now you should feel kind of, okay, I think I'm done. You know, like you should feel those things, you know. And if you're not, it's because you're probably still over caffeinating, and you're listening to other narratives about what it means to be a human being, because you are participating in some sort of view just by being a human being. And in that view tells you what your relationship is to each other, to yourself, to what you do in the world. All of those things are like already working, you know, with you. The language you use, all that stuff. So this is, and I think I harp on that a lot, but like, Go is a time of ideals. It's a time of like a vision of like who we are as humanity, you know, operating in real time. So you have it. You already have it. I don't need to tell you. You know, like it's just getting it out and recognizing what are the assumptions you've made about being a human being. This moon is basically, you know, bringing them to the surface. And if that means, oh, I work as hard as I can until I drop. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm here to tell you, you know, like there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just that the consequences might mean that you cease being human. And you become much more of a something that the text would call close. Because the notion is that humans already know what it's like to feel done with something. They know how to be in a relationship to their activities such that they know when to stop. I don't keep trying to drink the tea when there's no more tea. I know what the sense of fulfillment actually is, what it feels like. In paying attention to my appetites, I know what my body needs because I know fulfillment, because I know satiation. Satiation, like, well, I'm full, I don't need to eat anymore. But the person who's just like, I don't know, I really want to try that. I can't let that go. I have to eat that right now. Like, that's ghost. You know, it's like never satisfied. So, you know, these 6 realms designations, they're pretty fluid, you know, and this is one of a transition. And when you have a transition moon like this, which the Earth go is a transition moon. It's between summer and fall. When you have these transitions, this is where you have this kind of like these tendencies kind of come up between the realms, drifting between the realms.
Different. Going way light. I'm brewing at like 170 here. It's very, very vegetal.
It is better.
But then I'm gonna pull out some of these nice savory notes. I'm gonna smell like you touch fried chicken. You know, smell on the lid. I didn't interrupt you. Smell this lid. Smells like Colonel Sanders' secret recipe. Wow. Not as much, but
So, go ahead.
Well, there were some themes you touched on. Gathered. Touched on.
Yeah.
There's Qigong for that.
Oh, for both?
Yeah. It's one and the same too. Let me serve our guests to you real quick. How you guys like it?
Really nice.
Yummy.
Yeah. Studio audience.
I mean, the sense in which, like, the gathering together is more of the cutting back obligations and gathering together, obviously, not mutually exclusive.
But very metal, right? So like coming in and cutting away.
Yeah, I mean, there's in this particular moon, because of the chi nodes and how they're arranged, there is a kind of beginning level of editing where you're just sort of recognizing that, like, okay, Yang Qi has like really driven the point home, and we've released all this activity. You know, especially with an Earth Force moon, there's a lot of things you put on your plate, most likely. You know, like you really press the edges of your capacity for action. so when you get to an Earth goat moon, the idea is like it's more like a positive choice than like a negative, meaning that like I actually really want to work with this, you know. And I know I have these other things, but like these people I know are involved. You know, there's an intimacy actually related to it, especially this year being in a water rabbit year. So like, okay, that seems really rewarding, but the people that I'm working with really stress me out. You know, I don't really want to do that. You know, like so. Yes, those are valid. Those are sort of valid decisions to make. It's like we shouldn't forget that this is a water rabbit year. This is an inward-facing year. So we have allowed the chi to move out based on the motivations that we carry from that inward facing that we did through, particularly through the fire snake moon, where there was a lot of really deep introspection, inward facing in relationship to how things were manifesting outward. Right. So, and then as we sort of make those choices and push forward in this horsey kind of way, then what we're left with is yes, a kind of initial stages of an editing process that have more to do with, they say, like editing what is unrighteous, cutting back on the things that actually don't really mean that much to you, because we've all done it. Like we all sort of overreach when the horse comes around. And so if we really want to solidify our sense of accomplishment, then number one, we pare it back to where we feel sort of held. And number two, we collaborate and be inclusive, and then it sort of expands. So this is why they say, you know, in the sixth moon, everything gathers in the middle. Everything comes to the center. All the influences you've cultivated all year, all the inspirations, all the senses of trust, all the things you've explored, it's all here. That's the idea. So there's a kind of retrospection inherent into this process of relating itself and seeing the interconnection, like present, just not as some cheesy woo-woo kind of notion, California notion. It's actually just in your daily life. You know? Who are the top 6 people that you call? All right, that's probably a good descriptor of what you've been up to. Like that's how you've been spending your time. Like, so let's just start with that. Would be the idea. And as it turns out, that relationship has its precedents, right? They go way back, having to do with ancestry, having to do with social relationships. And this is where you get these all these understandings of what it means to be a human, based on the assumptions of the people that you associate with. Just not fancy, like very, very just available. So in the middle of, so this is where I was going to bring forward these 2 kind of esoteric points where you go to your qigong.
Okay. Your little qigongy thing.
Your qigong. Yeah. One is this like, in other words, the hexagram that comes up for me when I think about this gathering together, because there is hexagram 45, which is gathering together, and it speaks to this sort of clan coming together and making offerings. But there is another one that I think is actually also pertinent, has to do with kind of aesthetic quality, which is hexagram 22, and that is about what they call like grace. But more importantly, what it describes is a situation in which beauty, things we're attracted to, have a lot to do with the outer appearances matching the inner state. Inner state manifesting with integrity, you know, to the surface. And when you have that kind of arrangement, you sort of automatically know where things are. Just gravitate toward each other in this kind of harmonious way. Very reminiscent of Gandhi, you know, in the spring, where we have resonance with each other. Same sort of feeling, quality that comes in the goat moon under this notion of like of this harmonious notion that has to do with like your inner expression being manifest sincerely, outwardly toward others. Very subtle point has to do with this concept, philosophical concept called Cheng. It's a Confucian concept called Cheng. And Cheng.
Shout out to Chung Lee.
Or Chengdu.
Yeah, Chung Lee.
So Chengdu is utilizing Cheng as completion, satisfaction, fulfillment. Right? It's very big. So you have the city of fulfillment, but there is a Confucian term called Cheng. It uses that character with a radical, speaking radical. Again, how to speak is paired with. That's a Cheng. That's also Cheng. That is about this kind of integrity of our words, matching our actions. That there is no reason to doubt something, and that this is the kind of basis for all of orderly society. The very prized notion of Confucian thought. In fact, the Neo-Confucians use Cheng as like kind of cosmological principle, establishing the order, and all of these things. But if you just look at the character itself, it means that everything is expressing its inner virtue when words match the action. I said it, I meant it, and I brought it forward. You can trust me. I demonstrate trust. I have that kind of integrity. Again, cycling back to Rabbit, which is all about trust. So, this can be a very beautiful time, beautiful month, if you have these kinds of relationships. You kind of know what you mean to each other and where you belong with one another, and you let your words speak with integrity. This is like true harmony. This is a real human feeling. This is what makes humans. It's not romantic. It's actually just real. This is the real sense of what makes human human. Anything less than that, it's like if you don't have these feelings, you're missing a huge part of what it means. Now you can go, So this is a very celebratory time. Beautiful time, where like a sense of belonging. Because you better get it now. Let me just say it. You better get it now. Because when it comes to going into the monkey and the rooster, it's all gonna be like you said, you said we're gonna be together forever. We are together forever, just living in different houses.
Okay, Qigong first. Okay, so it was gathering and dispersing, right? Gathering, pushing away, cutting away, these themes. Okay, so the gathering. And you can match your breath with this. It makes sense to inhale in the expansion, it makes sense to exhale, collapse, right? This would clearly be gathering, feeling. Really fun way to look at it is I can also gather from the heavens above. I can gather from my relations around me. Gather. So let's say I only have one arm. I can also gather one in the same shape. And so that's that gathering feeling. And then there's also the cutting away or the pushing away of superfluous. And then that's just the reverse of pierce, bring metal quality, piercing, pushing away, repeating that.
Was the breath reverse?
You could. This too has that high middle correlation and also. Now, the cool kids, what they call the speedball, they do the upper and the downer at the same time, right? And then you get these cool expressions where you're splitting, where one is gathering, part of it. especially when one goes heaven, one goes earth. There's a qigong for that.
There is a qigong for that.
Okay, third and final tea. I'm saving the first for last. No, all of our teas are good. But tea plus tea, but I've never been a fan of jasmine. Right, it reminds me of Chinese restaurant. And for my palate, it's a bit too fragrant and floral for me. However, we're going to be creative with our brew. We're going to do a pretty. Let's see what this is a tea. This is our floating snow jasmine brewing from the May. Right? From the May. Shout out to Bill. And yeah, again, I'm not too big on the jasmine, but the hint that Sohan gave me, the brewing hint, he said, cold brew.
Oh wow!
Right? Or full
That would
moon.
be excellent for this time of year.
Yeah.
Actually, you should cold brew that.
Yeah. And full moon tonight, leave it out.
Yeah.
And get a full moon cold
Yeah.
brew. The covet would be all great. Wow.
And it's also cooling, helping disperse stuff heat. That's like melons. Yeah, light, because the fragrance can really overwhelm.
What's this about melons? Tell me more about
Yeah,
melons.
eat melon.
Dude,
This
that
is the
sounds
time to eat that
Duck.
melon.
I just bought, shout out over here, I just bought 20 watermelons.
Ooh, I'm on my way over. Wait,
Duck.
I'm already here.
I have the hookup. I got them on the low. We have 3 varieties, actually 4. I want the 4th one. Who wants this little 2x1?
No, I need a big.
Right? So we get the big
The one that looks like
stripe
an
with the seeds.
Yes.
The big stripe seed, we get those.
Okay.
On the low, we get the black tiger stripe. Super big for kids. That one, it's black. Ooh, it's very, very special. The rind is black. Right? And then the one that's coming next week, yellow watermelon. Yellow, and that's the meat is yellow. And so we're
Just
hooking up
let
with
me
the
know
farmer.
when I should be here.
Well, our delivery is coming in Friday, so day after tomorrow, we're getting a truck dumping off 20 watermelons. So I eat one a day.
Yeah, this is a great time for melon. Yeah, like it's
Shout out to one.
yeah, shout out to watermelon. You know who you are. Yes, it's melon's one of the cooling ones, but like all the chrysanthemums like in your tea or even jasmine, cold brew, excellent to help disperse heat.
Next segment. Good luck, bad luck, who knows? I love it. I love it. You crack up.
Well, who knows? I think I fixed it.
Yeah, good luck, bad luck, who knows? Because goat, so what?
Who actually gets along with it is what you're saying. But it's also goat. It's also goat in a rabbit year. So there is a sense in which everybody likes to be together.
Well, it's the goat ox. They don't get along too well.
True, but but everybody's got a place to huddle up, and everybody has a place to cuddle. Everybody has a place to Maybe I'm just too big. I'm like everybody's good. Everybody's great. You got people. Oh, wow.
That's wow. I don't
Because
even
it's
like
not very
jasmine.
sweet smelling.
Oh my god.
It's actually really.
We need a 5th camera angle for the production.
We need a nose camera.
God,
Scratch and sniff. You get that?
Wow. Noah, right?
It's good. It smells.
Ooh, yeah.
Eileen, right? The
The thing
lady.
is,
here.
it
It's
smells
candy.
better. It smells better after it's been woken up. Than, So
Yeah, look at that. Wow, production. Now we got a standard. You got to do that every time.
All right. There's this idea that like, I'll answer the question next time, but like, but when I think about that good luck, bad luck, in the context of this particular in our discussion, it just brings me to this idea that I was having a reflection preparing for this. Everybody wants to be part of something larger than themselves. But the way we sort of hold that, it's almost weaponized. That you either are part of something larger yourself, or you're kind of a loser. Like a little bit of a selfish douchebag or something. But we turn it into a moral quality. Like, do you know how to be part of something bigger than yourself, or you're just only looking up? And so that's sort of an implication, at least in our society, we talk about. we talk about being part of something larger than ourselves. And I'm here to say, in conjunction with good luck, bad luck, everybody's part of something larger than themselves. Just by virtue of being a human being, I think that's actually part of our legacy as a human being, is to be part of something larger, what feels like larger. Even if you have a child, or like, you're part of a family, you go to the same cafe at the same time every Tuesday. Like, guess what? There you are. You're part of community, all these sorts of buzzwords that being kind of qualified and turned into sort of containers of commodification sorts of levels of fulfillment. I guess what's important for me to express is that you're already doing it just by virtue of being. So those different G characters that have different relationships, that kind of experience, some come quite naturally, others might find the demands of other people more annoying than anything, like a tiger or a dragon, they'd just be like asking me questions, like they might come across as more annoying, but that's actually just their relationship. That's how they relate. Don't bother me. But they're in it, that's how they participate. So, you shouldn't hammer people with notions of community. You shouldn't harangue them. You shouldn't like force them into a box of a certain idealized notion of what it means to be part of something larger than yourself. That said, you're going to do it anyway, because ideals are very operative right now, very strongly operative. So it's very idealistic in how they perceive and interact. So competing ideals. If we have a society based in competition, everybody's trying to catch somebody else's attention and prove the other person wrong. Like, that's part of how we relate. That is actually who we are and what we do. But this notion of gathering together is to say that sort of Confucian mindset, you're sort of dropping what makes us different and focusing more on what makes us. So that it's a ritual for that. It's very important in Confucian society. This is the time when we're self-regulating in a way, when we're actually expressing harmony, demanding harmony, sincerity from one another, accountability. When we're really able to be that way with one another, we regulate heaven and earth. That's what's so important about this moon from a Confucian standpoint, from the calendar standpoint. This is where heaven and earth kind of meet us and say, "How you doing?" Oh, you're fighting. Like you're not even paying attention to the effect you're having on you. Oh, we lose touch in that way. So this is the time where our behavior calibrates everything around us. Everything. We're able to touch that level of interconnection, and we still are. You're still part of it. And they used to say, concrete knee replacements, all part of nature. Like this, we're actually participating. So we shouldn't like choose one thing over another.
Concrete knee replacement.
All part of nature.
All part of nature.
So, in answering the question, yeah, oxen might but they might be in a situation where they're not asked a lot of, just their presence, their helpful presence is enough. But if we went down the list, rats are doing great. This is a very good time for them. Oxen are good if they're in a place where they're not asked too much and people understand them for what they are.
Not that bad, right? At one part, there's always one.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an aftertaste. There's a little bit of an aftertaste. But you have to keep drinking. I think that's the trick. You don't want the aftertaste. Keep drinking more.
Keep making more foretaste.
Yeah, melon.
But I think that cold brew tonight. Yeah, I'm gonna leave some out tonight. And cold brew whatever this woman might. No, I'm big
You're welcome.
Okay, so rats chilling, good luck. And that's good luck, that's good luck. They're doing good.
Yeah, it's a productive time. Yeah, I mean, this is, obviously a friendlier time than divorce because they have they have some sort of social network to tap into and some kind of appeal of harmony. They can't say, whoa, 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 and people would listen, right? Like, potentially, but as far as tigers, we already mentioned them, leave me alone. And then rabbits, technically, rabbits do very well. But also is the case that rabbits are very sensitive this year to sociological. I know some rabbits that are struggling. I think it has not so much to do with goats as it is a sort of desperation and the hysteria of of a culture wanting to push yang qi to its absolute. And that's really the thing that might really grate on a rabbit is aggression. So if rabbits are in aggressive places, then they have a hard time. Dragons don't notice. None of it. They don't notice. And I think to some degree snakes as well. Like the snake by this time in the year has kind of found their place to sort of chill. Horses continue running. They're the ones that are actually most susceptible to this burnout thing that we're talking about. And so, yeah, eat melon and have friends to tell you to stop. It's really important for a horse right now. Goats, I mean, they're shining right now. Or they're incredibly frustrated. Kind of depends on the context that they're in. But it's a very influential time for them. Same for monkeys, like having, as we've talked about with the water rabbit year specifically, because it was a really interesting opportunity for monkeys to be incredibly influential, almost like kind of inspiring by that kind of their unique flavor, etc. And so this is a little bit of a coming out party, in a go moon where they can kind of sort of open themselves up to being seen, which will continue in monkey moon because it is in that. Which should actually, and they should pay attention during this time because everybody's going to be a little bit tense by the time we get to the rooster. And roosters are probably more befuddled now than they've ever been.
Okay. Fair enough.
Dogs and pigs. Again, in the case of dogs and pigs, if they're in a good snuggle place, so to speak, if they kind of know, especially dogs, they know who their people are. This is a very valuable time. The pigs are just kind of all over the place. They don't really. Pigs are operating right now as if they're in a world with no enemies, which can go very well or very poorly. So we shouldn't underestimate that. These are just opportunities. They're not telling you what's going to happen. There's a lot more cofactors to go into. But overall, pigs feel safe. All of that is about to change as soon as the monkey gets on board. So, like I said, if you feel part of something, look for it, find it, cultivate it, hold on to it.
Thank you for that segue, because you know me, I am
Monkey.
metal monkey at that, and I'm excited. Because Metal Monkey Moon, is this something to look forward to? Is this going to be like a teaser for the Monkey Year?
Oh, you mean Dragon Year?
Dragon Year.
I wouldn't read that much into it.
I just want to feel important.
I mean, sure. There is a way in which you could say that, because there is this notion of moving inward in the water rabbit year that by now everybody's pretty familiar with.
Yeah.
That if you actually embrace it, like the idea behind rabbit is that all that inward facing in examination and dialogue with our environment then explodes into activity when it comes to the dragon. So I would certainly say that every monkey should really pay attention to their experience going in and through monkey moon. But the monkey moon itself is definitely kind of an editing quality, right? It's the sort of yin taking charge, which means there is going to be this dialogue of frustration, a dialogue of hysteria. No, don't take it. It's gonna be like that.
Yeah, so the monkey would kind of be this erratic, but the chi is to contain. So it's almost like Guan Yin putting that crown. It gets out of hand. It's like this taming.
Say more.
Well, you know the story of Journey to the West? Mm-hmm. And you know how Monkey King was trapped under the mountain for 500 years.
Right.
And he was let out under the agreement that he would escort priests to the West to retain some students. But once Monkey's out, he's like, whatever. So then Buddha treated him, he's like, well, you're Monkey King. And he's like, well, here's what happened. Puts it on, and it was actually the crown that shrink, crushed the monkey's skull. Yeah, GPS. And then the monk knew the mantra, so the Monkey King never got wild.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. It's appropriate in the sense that, get used to emotional exposure.
Wow.
in a rabbit year, monkeys sometimes act with impunity, and
Oh yeah, we do.
And that might not go over so well.
Hell yeah, well.
In a rabbit year. Okay, so this could be a good place for reflection, in terms of when the monkey's capacities become much more expansive and influence becomes greater in dragon year. What are the implications actually in a dragon year? Well, pay attention to rabbits. Because if a monkey didn't pay attention to rabbit, they're most likely extremely irresponsible. It doesn't mean they won't offend people. It just means they might go, hey, did that offend anybody? They'll double check after they actually do. So this is good. So this moon, is a good sort of check-in place. But maybe in a water rabbit year, people sort of chasing the shadows of consciousness. it's a high imagination, an imagination fueled by sort of intuitive place. And if you haven't like figured out like where that intuition is being sourced from, then you could be sort of hysterical, switching this way. So I just double down on that. If you're feeling good and kind of accomplished and fulfilled, like, hang on to that. Use that. Like it's good to kind of know some boundaries before you go into the world.
Perfect segue. What would make it?
Oh, what would make it?
You want some pour?
I just played.
Shunk. What would make it?
Sweet serve tea.
Could you pour this out?
I think it's safe to say that in goat moon, high ritual time.
I'm sorry.
Very, very strong for ritual. Yeah, the gathering everything in the middle, right? So depends on. Ming wrote about this idea that kind of depends on what you're looking at. You're looking at it in the lunar mandates, or you're looking at the chinos. Sometimes they link up, and sometimes they tell different stories. So the transition points in the lunar mandates all revolve around the sixth moon. So it's actually, with all the 12 moons, the sixth moon is like, what do you got? Like, and if you can't come forward and say, this is what I did, and this is the best I did. Like, this is what I could do. Like, then you're more likely going to be caught in a narrative where you're constantly trying to prove yourself all through winter, and you're going to exhaust yourself. Like, so there is a calibration that comes with declaring what you've done and just going with it. And then we have these other, in the chi nodes, the calibration points come at various points during the year, right? So it's a little different system, but most importantly, both are correct. Right? It's not just one or the other. But it is safe to say that in the sixth moon, it's very high on this. So answering the question, I would say that Ming would be doing a lot of ritual. He would be doing a lot of ritual. So rituals can be done like we're doing right now. This is a ritual. Or rituals can be done at your own place in order to calibrate your year, what you've been doing, the offerings that you make. Wow. Very both communal and also, particularly if you're the head of a school carrying a lineage, like you're not alone. You're never alone if you carry a lineage. You're not alone. So like you're working as voice for those for that lineage that requires a level, not just a level of recognition, but like taking back the sense of accomplishment and fulfillment to them as a kind of calibration point. So when we're talking about what would Ming do, my suspicion is that there would be a hell of a lot of ritual.
Fascinating. In the conversation of ritual, and I'm assuming in this conversation, Taoist ritual,
Primarily.
I'm curious the protocols and the directions, and perhaps that's another conversation you and I can have on an episode of Deep Steeps, the Yushin Clay podcast. But I'm curious about
Next season.
Yeah, I'm curious about ritual because vulnerability. I was recently, I wouldn't say I was in it because I turned it down. I wasn't initiated. What's the word? Recruited. They sent a recruiter from the esoteric order of the Golden Dawn. These ritual magicians. Yeah, they like wear the robes and say stuff. So that's some serious magic.
And have rings.
Yeah, that's serious magic. They're like candles and stuff. And so, ritual. I'm curious about rituals.
So
not now. But
yeah, no. I mean, the direct answer to the question would be, I mean, there are auspicious times to do ritual. This Thursday being one of them.
Which ritual already?
This actually, tomorrow is a really, really important ritual day. Very much so. And it does reflect, and I tried to express this as best I could in the Feng Shui Insight that I read, is this notion of the gathering together. And gathering together in preparation for sort of the transitions that are coming. Because their transitions are on the way, like they're at our doorstep. They've already sort of started to arrive. So we can't necessarily take for granted that we have a lot more time to kind of push and get things we want across the finish line. We're actually the ship is already moving. So given that that's the case, this Thursday, tomorrow is kind of the last big day. Oh, and it's not over, so it's over. So it's like, it's never over. But it's a good day to sort of have this kind of dialogue and work with what is unfinished, what feels unfinished, how to bring it forward, or how to compost it. What feels ready for harvest and what needs to be recycled. Called editing the unrighteous. So it's just not there. And being good with that. So having that kind of dialogue, I think on Thursday, just thinking about it, it's all ritual. It's a favorable day for Taoist ritual if you're trained in that.
Nice. Okay.
But ritual itself, it's brushing your teeth. It's a ritual. Going to bed at 9:30 is a ritual. Like,
wow.
Whatever. Like if you do things intentionally on a regular kind of basis, you should be thinking about your life as ritual.
This is a ritual.
Right.
A 1 year ritual.
Right. Yeah. It's actually quite a favorable day. It took me a while to get warmed up, but like once I did, I was here.
You'd still be doing this alone.
Yeah. When I said it the first time, like, I'd be doing this alone. Very good point. Thank you for making me that so low.
Oh, see, you are romantic. We're just passing the romantic ball back. Well, how about this? We are well over our hour. I think we're excited.
Oh, hey.
We got into technology. So how about we open the floor for questions?
Questions? Any questions?
Questions? Any questions? Connie, you gonna ask about Instagram?
Silence.
Oh, maybe we couldn't.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
You may talk.
I don't have a question. Very enjoyable, very enlightening. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Great. Well, if no questions, that's it for Goat Moon.
Question.
Question.
Any advice for those of us who work in industries that are ready to ramp up into a frenzy of forefall?
Sure.
Oh,
yeah. Conservation is. I would encourage that conservation is still available. Sort of. Well, your workflow. I mean, we make compromises living in a digitalized industrial society. But I think the important thing to remember is not really. Meaning that it's only based on a kind of idea. Like if we have a naturalist understanding, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. I think that whatever it is that we're doing, it's all natural. It's all part of the dharma, of your life is being in the situation you're already in. And I always say to clients that you can never get to where you want by condemning where you are. It's just not possible.
You won't get where you want by condemning where you are, dude.
So
that's Richmond football coach saying. Wow. Okay, please.
So you don't. This is something that was kind of alive for me. Basically thinking about how we digest these wisdom traditions. It's very tricky because we have a kind of salvationist mindset. And so we think, oh, if I live naturally, then I would feel better, and all these different things that we're actually looking for some sort of remedy. So, Ming once said that if you are taught that you're fractured, then it's if you accept the fact that you're fractured, it's easy to sell things to.
Damn, shout out collection plates.
Whatever, yeah, I mean, that was religion, not sure what that means quite so much anymore in this modern age, but like, it's more important to say just the fact that if you are convinced that you're fractured, it's easy to have things sold to you, whatever that is. The content doesn't matter at all. And I suspect that there is an environment of continually fracturing needlessly and with complete bogus information in order just to keep the sales flowing, right? So it doesn't really matter like what you're being told, as long as it fractures you, keeps you from, yeah. So you can't trust your own appetite. So you can't even think about like trusting. What would you ideally want for dinner? Like at all times, just do it. That's what those things. Trust your appetite. Just try it. If it's ice cream for 7 days in a row, do it. And then just see how you feel. Like
Learn.
Learn. Go with that. Like that's actually the practice. So yes, answering the question, living in industrialized society is we're going into what I might consider like wackadoodle holiday season of overconsumption. The Confucian answer is, be responsible for your own behavior. And so, and that can only happen if we give ourselves the permission to pay attention to our own appetite. There's nothing I can tell you that's really going to help you more than that.
Spoken like a true guru.
There you go. But I appreciate the question. I'm not. I don't want that to feel gaslighting. I mean that sincere. Like anybody who's trying to tell you it's going to cure your fracture is trying to tell you something. That's actually the definition of the condition. They're actually trying to. I'm not interested in empowerment. I'm not trying to sell you nothing. I find this information fascinating because it's been around for a while. And it corroborates with our experience. So, my advice is try it. Check it out. So, as we're going into seasons in which the culture at large, we're already in an hysterical situation where people don't want to quit. They think summer's just getting started. So forget the holiday season is happening now. So how are you responding to that? So in our particular situation, the demands of summer might be stronger for one person as it is for winter, but it's still kind of the same story. So I think that, dude, work with what you have, work with where you are. Conservation is available to you. It doesn't have to look like an idealized state. The smallest thing can actually help you get through the season and help you discover the appetites that you need to move forward to whatever next thing you're actually looking for that motivates the question. So I would say do divination practice, to continue working with dialogue. But that's my answer for everything.
For bookings, please look up ZhenWuAstrology.
No, not trying to sell you. Do your own divination. I don't want to do your divination.
Well, Anything we want to tell the people before we close up?
Oh, thank you for your patience.
Something I could share is that next month, September, I'm gonna be in Colorado, headlining this event. We gotta work out what day. Yeah, so next month we got all this camera stuff, and then I have to use it. I'll be gone from the 6th to the 12th. But that's it. Universal Consciousness Festival. Google it. You guys can all go. Tickets right now. Airline from California. Tickets round trip $78.
What? When is it? Next month.
September 6th to the 12th. Taoist Immersion. My brother Michael is teaching circle walking. I'm going to be teaching 20 Now Foundations. My grand uncle Spot. That's who's hosting.
Maybe I'll go there.
Right? Paul Pritchard, Healing with Whole Foods, classic book. He's going to be there. There's also this other yoga lady that I don't know too much about. And Sifu Kisu's going to be out there. A bunch of my disciples are going.
Let's go crash on Kisu's couch.
Dude, we know Razor. That's right. You know Kisu like that.
Crash on Kisu's couch. Thank you, Alter.
Thank you, studio audience. Back and producer. You got a job, man. You got a job. You're good at this.
You got a future, kid.
All right. So we can stop recording there.